Sharon made apologies. She needs to attend to family matters this morning during this slot. So for all of us, that's important also. So we excuse her by all means and always appreciate the contributions she makes. So myself and Andre would like to share firstly a little bit around credentialing. What is the COMENSA credentialing process? And I think up front, we're still busy with the conversation around a specific credentialing for financial coaching. So at this point in time, we're then talking just becoming a COMENSA credentialed coach. Andre will take us through that process. And then in the working group, we had a conversation, and Andre actually initially initiated the conversation to say, for a lot of advisors in COMENSA, as we know, have got credentialing for both coaching as well as mentoring. For a lot of advisors, mentoring will most probably be a more natural process due to the fact that we all grew up in an advice process, which is more directive and sharing experiences, etc. So Andre will then also we'll then from credentialing jump over, but like always, it's an open forum, and let's get, keep the conversation going and put forward your questions, etc. as we go going through. So that more or less the agenda for today. So welcome to everybody, and Andre, as always, we appreciate your time that you give up to attend these sessions. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Hendrik. Okay, so should I start?
Yeah, you can shoot.
Okay, so just to mention the credentialing part first, as Hendrik has mentioned, we have the coaching credentialing available. We also now, since end of last year, we have the mentoring designations that's also been approved by SACWA. So what that means is for each one, for coaching and for mentoring, there's 3 levels. And the first level, and this applies to both coaching and mentoring, but the designations are named differently. So the first level is COMENSA credentialed coach or a COMENSA credentialed mentor. Then the second one is a COMENSA senior coach or a COMENSA senior mentor. And the third is a COMENSA master coach or COMENSA master mentor. Now, there's certain requirements for being credentialed. And as we mentioned, maybe the mentoring part would resonate better to you guys that's in the financial world, because it's maybe not that directed as coaching in a sense. You'll see when we just briefly go through the mentoring behavioral standards just now, and there's even less of them, where coaching has 9 behavioral standards, mentoring has 6. For credentialing on both of these, what you need to do is in a session display or make sure or that the evaluators can see that you can deal with the behavioral standards, that you can apply them in the session. So it needs to be visible in the session, if I can say visible. The requirements on the first level on both coaching and mentoring is the main requirements would be 60 hours of coach or mentor specific training. Then the hours that you need to have coached or mentored. It used to be 150 hours for the first level, of which 90% needs to be paid hours. We have had that approved by SACWA to reduce that to 100 hours, to make it more accessible in the sense that people don't have to wait that long before they can embark on a proper professional designation. The second level is 120 hours of specific either coach or mentor specific training. It used to be 750 hours required coaching or mentoring hours. Now that's reduced to 500 hours. So it's even better. But the master level needs 200 hours of training, and that can be different training programs that you've attended. But there, it used to be 2,000 hours. We've upped that to 2,500 hours, 2,500 hours. If you say, well, I can do this, I can coach or I can mentor, but I don't have a formal qualification. I'm not certified as a mentor, or I'm not certified as a coach. That's not a train smash, because SACO also requires us to go the RPL route, recognition of prior learning, which could be your years of experience. Also, if you got a qualification from a foreign country, they do not recognize it. So then you also have to go the RPL route. Then we look at a few different things, but it's the same basis, the same application, same requirements, just that the training part is not applicable in that sense. To apply, obviously, you can apply online. You need to write some essays, you need to submit documents, and so on. And what happens once you've done that and you've done your payment, you will be allocated 2 evaluators that will actually then evaluate you during a session, which will be online. One of the evaluators usually would be the coachee and second evaluator. The other one would be the lead evaluator. And if you prefer, you can send in a recording, a video recording where you can see you, and you can have your own coachee in that sense, where we can see both people and see you display what you need to do. And that's the other option. For mentoring, we do not do a live evaluation, because it might be that you play in a field, well, finance, and the evaluators might not be financial people, but they can still do it. So it's difficult for them then to come up with something. So there, the requirement is that you send in a video recording, which you will then be evaluated on, where you're mentoring one of your mentees, a new mentee or a current mentee. But there, again, then you mentor, then you're not coaching. And there's a difference. And sometimes we have people that come for the evaluation for coaching, and they're purely mentoring. And we have to actually redo the session because they didn't realize the difference. And yes, that's something very important. Also, if you mentor, you're not coaching. So just bear that in mind. That's all on the credentialing side. If you then have that designation approved, or you found proficient, that will be valid for 3 years. Then after 3 years, you need to renew that designation. And that will be subject to your CPD points that you need to accumulate over those 3 years. And that is 72 CPD points. We have a policy up on our website, our CPD policy, how you can claim CPD points. If you attend a webinar, which is coach related, if you've got a coaching designation, you get 1 point for attending the webinar. If you present, you get more points. If you attend COMENSA events, you get points. If you read an article that's unverified, but you can still claim it, if it's coach related or mentor related, you get points for that. If you study something or you go on training, all those things, you can get points. What we do, however, require is 12 points over the 3 years for supervision. That is compulsory. It seems like, oh, how do I do that? That means you do 4 sessions a year, which you get a point for each session. And that you can do, you can attend group sessions, you can attend one-on-one sessions. There are even groups that people that do group supervision sessions where you don't have to actually pay for it, online. But that's part, and it's mainly for your growth as a coach or a mentor. It's not to police you or anything, it's for your own personal gain at the end of the day. And we also encourage people not to wait for the 3 years to nearly end, and then you realize now you got to go back in your diary. do it as you do a session or something that you can get your point. You can go on the website, you log it on the website. Even people that's not credentialed, we encourage them to get into that thing and also for them to realize they need to grow constantly. So that's basically what it is. And then if your points are in order, that will be renewed for another 3 years. You do not have to do another session and be evaluated again. Although if you want to go to the next level, you have to redo a session again. So that's it on credentialing. Any questions, you're welcome to ask. Nothing.
So perhaps just to start the conversation, Andre, the first level was always member coach. I think it's now friends of COMENSA. So is if you in the process of wanting to gain a credentialing somewhere in the future, you can join COMENSA. What is that process and what is the benefits of that? Just starting off, being part of the community, because there's also, in my mind, a lot of benefit just doing that.
Yes, so if you go on the website and there's a button that says join, that's basically you first become a friend of COMENSA, which basically it's just creating a profile. Once you got the profile and your login details, then you go to the next step, which you either become a student member if you're studying, and that you can only be for a maximum of 3 years, or you can become an ordinary member, not being credentialed. If you want to be credentialed, you have to be an ordinary member already. You can't just be a friend of COMENSA, not be a member, and then just want to be credentialed. So that needs to keep going every year. You can renew your membership. There's lots of advantages. You can get information. You get notified if there's organizations that need coaches or mentors that get sent out on emails. There's events where it's part of growth, where people come and they talk at an event. You can also, if you got something, you can apply to be one of the presenters, stuff like that. So, and it's also being part of the community, networking. If you maybe land a contract where you need another 10 coaches, then, and you know the other members, you know which coaches are experts in what's their niches, and you can draw on them and bring them into your contract or whatever. So there's a lot of advantages, because coaching or mentoring can become lonely because it's just you and your clients, and you don't interact on your clients where you can maybe use them as a sounding board, or ask questions, etc., about maybe something you're struggling with. And that's why it's important to get to know other coaches and start connecting with other coaches. But that's also where supervision comes into play, where it's not someone looking over your shoulder, but it's someone where you can come and maybe bounce off ideas, or come and say, I've got these challenges at the moment in my life, or I'm struggling with this with a client. Those people are there to help, especially in the current, how can I put it, mental state of people. I think even coaches and mentors are going through a tough time. They're struggling. They're feeling overwhelmed. I get so many of that, where people say, I can't cope, and they're not performing up to their optimum level as a coach or a mentor. So it's about being part of a community, and where you can relate to other people going through the same stuff, or whatever it could be.
So in terms of the logbook and the number of hours, perhaps, Andre, what is the requirement? What do we see as coaching? If I'm having a session for clients where I do, for instance, a group financial literacy coaching session where I engage with a client in terms of coaching, that's a few of the things that goes through my mind. And then the 90-10 is most probably where I do pro bono work, where I do not charge for those sessions, is then the other part, perhaps guidance in terms of the logbook, because I think that's normally a challenge, because I'm very bad at holding a logbook myself. I actually joined a platform now so that it can log my hours automatically. So yeah.
Yeah, I know people say it's a challenge, and then when they want a credential, they have to go and dig up diaries from 5 years ago and work through it. And it sometimes takes them a couple of days in between where they have to calculate those hours. So we allow the 10 hours. If you get paid for all 100% hours, that's fine. But we allow the 10 hours where you can give back to the community. And it doesn't mean that you're just coaching for free because you're scared of asking money. And I think that's what we're trying to enhance here, because some of our coaches are so afraid to say, these are my fees. And then they just coach and they don't get money for it. And then they don't last long. If it's a little bit more than 10%, if it depends on the person's circumstances. If you work at an NPO or NGO and there's no charges, but that's where you go, and maybe they just give you a salary, or you work for an organization and you are the coach in the organization and they pay you X amount per month, that is actually paid because you get paid for it, for what you do. If you do a group session, you can charge, obviously, if it's an hour or 2 hours, you can't charge per individual, log the individual hours. And you don't have to give too much detail because of the POPI Act. We just need to know, basically, client or whoever, those are the hours, whatever it could be. And if you haven't logged your hours, start now. It's never too late to start, but even if you can go and backtrack on your hours, we're not really going to go and phone these people and say, did you coach them? And we trust your integrity, first of all. But if we do pick up something looks dodgy, we're obviously going to say, give us more detail and look at that. Because we've had 2 or 3 cases where one guy put in hours like, this company 100, that one 100, everything was like 100, 150, 120. And then we realized there's a problem. And well, eventually it didn't make it after 2 sessions anyway. So that becomes questionable. So one has to just trust on people's integrity and say, this is it. We trust you. And we can quickly pick up if something is not in place. But I mean, if you want to be professional and have a professional designation, surely there's some ethical things that come into play as well. And why do you want to come up with hours that's non-existent? But yeah, you can go back into your diaries and go and log those hours. It is important because you got to submit that.
So the one question I get from financial planners a lot, Andre, is due to the fact that, like you now know from our conversations, the financial coaching and financial planning process to a large extent is integrated, and indirectly the fees, like being employed by a company, fees most probably comes in certain instances from the assets under management that you've got, that you get a fee on. So having those sessions and logging those sessions as coaching hours, will that count for viable or approved coaching hours in your mind?
Yes, why not? That is what you're doing. So you can count those hours.
I've now asked a lot of questions. Other questions from the floor?
And it's not that difficult. I know it's scary and people do get fearful. And they say, oh, I don't, someone's going to check on me. And they get sometimes terrified of that actual session. But the evaluators, they are well-trained. They know how to put you at ease. They are user-friendly. And we're there to support. We're there to encourage. Yeah, so it's not something to be afraid of.
They are human beings.
Yes, we all are. And I know what it feels like. Sometimes it's nice to sit on the one side of the table where you can evaluate. But to sit on the other side, it's not that great. And earlier this year, a couple of us went for the mentoring evaluation for credentialing as well. And yeah, it feels odd. And It's not that comfortable, but you got to do it.
Is it my understanding that Sharon plans to run a coaching course? Do you guys know?
Yeah,
Yes.
so both Sharon's programs as well as ours at the University of the Free State is approved. Yeah, is COMENSA approved training courses. Yeah, yes, and so yeah, and
My
both of
history,
yeah, and both of us is also then for that purpose trained evaluators. So yeah.
my history is that I did a coaching course with Ellen Gray Fundhouse, and then it's kind of developed from there. But I feel like, yeah, I'm on my own here. So I'm the type of person that needs to be taught and enrolled in a course to make me feel like I'm doing it properly.
Yeah. So yeah, that will be great. So yeah.
Sorry, are you running the Hendrik? Are you running the Free State coaching course? Who's running
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
And how long is it?
So it's that the 12-week one as well as then a 11-month one. So yeah.
Is it the one that I did with you already? That one,
Yeah.
or is it a different one?
That one.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. So that's the
Yeah.
one I've done already. Is that the one that's accredited?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Welcome, Stephen.
So just to maybe
Good morning.
mention
How's it? Thanks.
the difference between mentoring and coaching, and I'm going to not make it too long on this, but a mentor is someone who shares their knowledge, their skills, and or their experience to help another to develop and grow. Where a coach provides guidance to a client on their goals and helps them to reach their full potential. So coaching, it's more like asking a lot of questions. You don't tell them what to do. You help them find their own answers. Where mentoring is a little bit different, although you still have to ask a lot of questions and also make the person feel that they are finding their own answers in certain instances. But also that's where you can more share knowledge and skills. This is how you do it, and guide them through that, where as a coach, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know everything, but it's for them to actually do that self-discovery, but you facilitating that change within them. So that's just very briefly. And mentoring is often a more longer term and maybe a lot more directive. So you share your knowledge, you tell or guide them, whatever. But in both instances, never give advice. Because if you say, yes, you should take that other job, and it backfires, they're going to come and say, you said they must do it. Mentoring could be less structured, all depends where it happens. If it's within an organization where you're going to mentor someone, maybe it's not that structured, but it's also very developmental driven. Coaching is maybe more short term. Also, it could be longer term, but there's a lot of training going on for coaches, especially. Mentors are maybe not that out there for training. And coaching is non-directive. It's about posing the right questions, providing that space and that trust and the confidence for that person to consider how they can achieve more to reach their objectives and also find the capabilities within themselves. So it's more performance driven as well, encourages the individual that's being coached to perform even in their day-to-day roles, especially where it's in a working environment. So those are basically the differences, but there's a lot of skills that also overlap between the two. And yes, some people want mentoring specifically, some want coaching. I, for example, had a client this week to say, please, can we start with a mentoring program from January, specifically mentoring, not coaching. So you also need to know, when do you wear the coaching cap? When do you wear the mentoring cap? If you do both.
where do you see yourselves in terms of that spectrum between mentoring and coaching?
Can I make a contribution?
Yeah, please, Dion.
Yeah, so I think if I understand you guys correctly, then can we log every meeting with a client when it comes to financial planning, advice, coaching as a session, but it probably will be more as a mentor, not so much as a coach.
If I can give a go and Andre come in, yeah, in my mind, it will be depending on what is your approach. You know, are you are you taking a mentoring approach to the conversation, or are you taking a coaching approach? So fundamentally, I think that's something that one need to say, you know, what is my core in terms of my approach of supporting the client through the process. That will be my gut feel, Dion.
Yeah, so at the moment, Sharon's helped me developing I call it my life plan program. So I'm using a lot of coaching principles, but it also it's actually a combination. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out. So what I'm also doing is a lot of financial principles. I'm busy creating videos so that clients can actually watch the videos almost like their homework, if I can put it that way, between the coaching sessions. So when we get, like, for example, what is inflation? When we get into the session, then I can just check in detail, understand what I'm talking about when I explain the inflation concept. Because for me, there's a lot of duplication, a lot of explanation, explaining to clients certain concepts that they're not familiar with. So, because I want to try to get us, if I can put it like this, as close as possible to coaching as I can. I think it probably will take some time. My end goal is to offer more coaching where you actually, for lack of a better word, where it's behavioral coaching, where you try to get the client to see into their behavior. I think for most planners, it's going to take some time to sort of evolve into that, because for most of us, we've already got practices, and there's certain overheads and there's certain things that transition, I think, will take some time. So at this stage, I'm trying to sort of build a combination thing of the two. So I assume I initially would probably go for the mentor membership, if I can call it that. I'm not 100%. Yes.
So Dion, perhaps I'm going to put up one slide here, which I think, and it's a general battle for all of us. There's two guys, Prof. Lazenby and I now forgot the other guy's name. They wrote a book, Scenario Selling, some back, and when I initially read their paper, it made so much sense for me in terms of our world. And then the book was out of print for some time, but I got a hold of the book now. It's in print again, and I think most probably, and that's just world according to Hendrik's thing is our main purpose is most probably enabling clients to dream, visualize, and live the best possible life now and in the future. So getting that paradox, and for me, financial coaching is fundamental to underlying that. But there's a second part, most probably, which is also core, is how do we mitigate and navigate, help clients to mitigate and navigate life transitions when they go through, and that's most probably a process, you know, between the client, ourselves, and and then how do we bring all this together? And the challenge for us as financial planners is there's also the technology part that, like, which you referred to, that sits, and then this book actually puts that so nicely together. And to your point is, on the one axis, we can actually say when we engage with clients is information, and on the other axis is what is the experience they've got. And most probably on the simplest part is, is the simple do it is where the client have got the experience, and they most probably it's the second or third home that they buy. They exactly know what is bond insurance, and they're just going to take it out. So the decision is, there's no uncertainty. I need to do it. It's transactional. And if we deliver that, we're the order taker in terms of the process. The second part is on the left top corner, is where the client needs information. And that's that part which you now say that you put into a learning medium, online with videos where we can say, but something simplistic like, I want to make an investment. I also do a learnership program for the business school. And I see, you've even have got junior actuaries as part of some of those plans. And then the question is, where do I start investing? And there's a little bit of risk involved there, because if I make the wrong decision, it's going to have a long-term impact to me. And for me, we can either have a mentorship or a coaching approach there, because that's a good example. Based on your circumstances and previous experience, I think this is a great way to start in investing. So we bringing some of that expertise, because that is actually what the client wants, is the expertise as well as the knowledge that come there. However, we sometimes end up with clients and I've got a few great examples the last few months where a client is totally over indebted. It's the second or third time that they acknowledge that they've already been there. They've watched all the TikTok videos that they can watch, but that's not helping. And that's pure coaching that's needed there, because it's complex, it's human stuff. There's something that's keeping them from some behavioral stuff, a money story, or what is that's keeping them from. And in my mind, that is, the function is, how do we help them to overcome those challenges that's keeping them from going there? There's a numbers part to it. However, the fundamental thing is couples that is in conflict with each other around how do they understand their finances. That type of stuff is something that you are experience it, but you also need to get a different experience and create a new experience and a different behavior to change it. And lastly is that the challenge is, how do we get clients actually to understand buying the new home now and saving less is going to have an impact on 20 or 30 years from now. The new car that you are buying, instead of investing and saving for the millennial or the Gen Z, what is the impact over the long term is what they then call hyper complex, where we do coaching and we collaborative engage in the process, but we also simulate it for the client to see the impact. And the things there is, you can't just go and do it, because there's a huge risk for the client. So they need to see the impact of the impact. And that's why to your point is, I think coaching is either coaching or mentoring, whichever way you are going, is integral to that whole process, because we are acting in that role as a guide. However, we also the coach and collabing with the client to say, however, okay, you've got a what if question for me. Do I need to do this or do I need to do that? So what is the impact going to be is to show them in terms of asking the questions, but also simulating the impact to it. And that happens, to my mind, in either a coaching approach where I ask the questions and I help them to see what is the impact of, by simulating it in my financial planning software, what is the impact. And that's happening by our approach, different to either as coach or mentor, is to say, we're helping the client to reflect and stop for a moment in terms of the process. We're helping to connect to new ideas and possibilities, and how are they going to take action. and we're helping them to make decisions, because I think that's the problem with too much information. How am I going to make a decision? And lastly, then being there and helping them to take action. And if they don't take action, to help them out. How do you learn from not taking action? And what was more important for you than taking action? And that, in my mind, is integral. However, to your initial question is, am I following a coaching or mentoring approach in terms of that? However, I think our world is so integrated. If we're on this journey of taking a coaching or mentoring approach, so I don't know, questions or thoughts, what comes up for you, Dion, because you started this conversation and I now just shared my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, I think that the only thing where it becomes confusing for me is so my whole approach, or this program that I'm putting together, there's a lot of coaching principles that I'm using. I question a lot into how they work with money, what the experience was, how their parents work with money. There's a lot of things that with the information gathering, there's a lot of personal information. So I try to use technology to get the normal asset liability, those kind of information. But I actually use technology to get me to have those specific conversations. So I do a lot of questioning to understand exactly where this client is coming from, and to see what they're probably not seeing. Okay, so but the thing is, where I find at this stage I don't have the capacity is to do narrative coaching. And for me, when I did Sharon's course, and after I did Sharon's course, I was totally fascinated. So I did the one at UCT at their business school, and they take a narrative coaching approach. But at this stage, I don't have the capacity or the hours or the time to put into a client to go all the way with narrative coaching. So I think for me, the definition of what is coaching probably is the thing that's confusing me. Is it what I'm doing at the moment? Because I do use a lot of coaching techniques and things like that, but I don't do the full narrative coaching to tell the client, so can I offer you this narrative? How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself in it? Offer them a new narrative, and there you actually take the behavioral coaching approach. I don't do that at this stage so much. I do use a lot of coaching techniques, and yes, a lot of the things that I find with clients by going through this whole process, there is change in the behavior, but I'm not going the long, how can I put it, the long partly.
Yeah. So the question that comes up for me, Dion, is if you think about the narrative coaching process and you think of the I, to a large extent, that is, if we think about that, that's creating the life plan for the client, creating the vision, the purpose, what is important for you. Also, what is your money, your personal money stories, but then the we is, how does that, what is cultural stories, etc., that influence you. So in my mind is, by your questions that you say, what is important in life for you, tell me about your history around money. What successes did you have? What failures did you have? Is part of that process reflecting? Isn't that part of the process of getting the client to reflect on their narrative, as well as then working towards what is the future narrative that they want to create? Right. So isn't it the inclusive process? I'm wondering about it.
Yeah, I'm also curious, Dion, when clients engage with you on this, are they coming to you as, in their mind, a financial planning experience? Or is it very clear that you're now moving out of that and you're doing a coaching experience around money?
Okay, so yeah, so one of the things that I wanted, I'm actually at the moment a little bit on leave, but I'm trying to work on the business, not in the business, for the next 2 weeks, because I want to roll certain things out in the new year. And one of those things are, I want to move more into a fee-based practice. So okay, that's a long story, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. But the main thing is for me, that was the big thing to make the transition from where you've never charged fees before. How are you going to go to your clients now all of a sudden and tell them, look, I'm going to start charging you fees? Now, I read this story about, I think they called it, the vehicle was called the Phaeton, something like that. Volkswagen introduced like a luxury car, like a super nice luxury car some years ago, probably I think it's about 20 years ago. And they totally confused the market. Volkswagen, I mean, the word Volkswagen stands for the Volkswagen. It's a reliable family car. And they introduced this like supercar to compete with almost like your Bentleys or your like a state car, a super nice engine, luxury and all of that. And they totally confused it, and it was a massive, massive failure. Toyota did exactly the same, but their one was a super, they did extremely well. So they totally rebranded it. So Lexus, I never knew this, Lexus actually stands for Luxury Export US. The US was actually asking for Toyota for this luxury car that they wanted. And Toyota said, and look, our why is to produce affordable, reliable family cars. This is going to confuse our client base. So let's sort of launch a totally new thing, introduce it to those clients that actually want it. And that's where Lexus started, and it was a super success. So what I'm actually in the process of doing is I'm building this life plan program, and I'm actually putting a lot of things together, videos, things like that, to explain to clients where we're going to take them with this going forward. So for me, I will still have the financial planning, or not financial planning, financial service product provider business, if I can put it that way. But I've actually established a total separate business, which is going to be the fee-based business. So my idea is to offer clients something. Look, it won't be for everybody, and I'm not going to write off the clients that don't want it. But that is what I want to do, is I want to start introducing the life plan program, and if I explain it well enough, they will understand this is totally something totally different to what they've experienced before, and will give them a different outcome. Because the problem is, as we all know, our industry, because it's always been remuneration, we've been remunerated by products that we offer to clients, and now in later years we've started receiving a trail fee. So obviously we need to offer some service regarding that. But because this is the way our business has developed over the years, clients actually have the impression that this guy either already sold me something that he's getting on a monthly basis remuneration, and that is why you have to give me service, or he's going to sell me another product and then he's going to get remunerated. I want to get away from that. I want to change the client's understanding of this that I'm offering is something that not a lot of people out there offer. If they then want to implement, they can actually go and implement at their brother-in-law or their friend or whoever. Chances are likely that we probably will be implementing, but then they've got the option. Then I'm going to say to them, listen, here's my financial product provider business, if I can put it that way. If you want to implement, speak to one of my product specialists, if I can call it that. But I'm trying to establish myself to be more of an independent, just focusing on the client's plan. And then once a year, I get remunerated by the client for reviewing their plan and helping them to stick to the plan. Mark that sin. Yeah, so that's how my look, and it's going to be a lot of trial and error, I suppose. I've given it a huge amount of thought. I think I've got a clear understanding of where I want to go with this. But I think time will tell. As we go along, I probably will have to make some adjustments so that it will be understandable and acceptable for clients. And again, not all clients will have to go that route with me, but I think for me, that gives me the most joy, is to see actually people's behavior change because somebody is taking the hand. At this stage, I think from a lot of advisors, we don't have the capacity to do that. So I'm trying to position myself also in a different role, if I can put it that way.
I've got the urge to ask Mark to say 2 cents worth because he walked this journey. So I think yes, an important thing around what is your intention and what do you want to take to market. I think that's perhaps something that's cool. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think it's hard to change the story that we've told existing clients, and now we're doing something different. So separating the two businesses is an easy approach. But something you said right at the end resonates the most with me, and it's the work that you enjoy doing the most, the coaching stuff. And I think that's kind of what you should pursue, right? So you do have this existing business, and just by the nature of the work that we've done over our lifetime, well, not my lifetime, but like historically, we've built AUM commission businesses, which have enabled us to sort of move out into this other world, and wanting to do that other work in a fee-based environment, I think is ideal, right? So separating the two things out, I think it's so that's kind of what I've done, right? So we do a fee-based business for new clients. We still have existing clients in an AUM world, but that's getting smaller and smaller. We can implement, the client can implement. But then in addition to that, we've also built out like a coaching business where, because I still think like the lines between financial planning and financial coaching get very blurred. And I think it's very hard to differentiate between, are we coaching or are we doing financial planning? Like, is it just going to be offered as one? So for me, I like to have a start and an end where we can say, okay, so we're in a planning world and something keeps coming up and it's causing a block or a stoppage, whatever it is. Now we need to transition into a coaching environment. So we can work through this. And then we've put a coaching process together, which says we should take you through all of the different exercises and your money story and wheel and those things, and go from point A to point Z. And ideally, then the client should be in a position to move back into the financial planning side of things and move forward. That's kind of our thinking and how we're structuring it. But it's also trial and error at the moment. It's financial planning, which is now paid for, and then you're going to move into a coaching role, which is now also paid for. So I think to have the two different businesses clearly articulate what they do and the outcomes needs to be cemented so that the client understands what they're paying for and what they're getting.
Yes.
So I think it's
so I totally agree with you. I mean, that was for me the big thing is and that is why I'm really trying to spend time to put a structure in place. So the idea with the structure is not to have a totally scripted sort of course that I take the client through, but for me and everybody in the office and even the clients as well, they need to understand, like you said, what they're paying for. And because it can become very blurry, that is why I'm in the process of designing this thing where, let's say the first meeting is a chemistry meeting, and there's certain things that I need to understand about the client, and they need to understand about me, and I need to explain to clients where I want to take them. If that is not a journey that they want to go on, then I can pass them on to one of the product people. Then I've got the what is important meeting, for example, and for myself, I mean, I'm not going to rigidly stick to the script, but I've got scripted questions because there's certain things that I need to understand about the client before we can go ahead. Then I've got, for example, the possibility meeting where I start, and there we start bringing in the financial planning principles. So there's certain things. Again, it's almost like it's a combination of financial planning and life coaching, because I mean, as we all know, I believe life planning has a massive impact. I mean, just what I've experienced thus far with life planning or life coaching, it's phenomenal. But I think for a lot of people, for every life event, there's a financial price to pay. So whether the person wants to work less, spend more time with his family, whether he wants to go and do missionary work, whether he wants to retire earlier, whether he wants his children to go to varsity, whatever it is, there's a financial price to pay. And I think that's what really makes me excited about this whole journey that we're on, is that not all life coaches have the understanding, the financial understanding. So I think and that's what I'm trying to do at the moment. I'm trying to define something that makes sense for me, that I can take to the client, that will make also sense to them. But the whole idea is not to make it too complicated. And I want to try to bring in as little as possible. Look, the information or the detail is important when it comes to financial planning. But in the past, we always focus on the detail. I'm trying to move the focus onto the client without ignoring the detail. That's where I'm trying to get to. So there's a lot of things, as you can hear, I've totally, exhausted my brain trying to think this thing through properly, and there won't be 100% perfect answer. But yes, it's, for me, it's very important. I need to understand what the plan is before I can offer it to the client, or to, otherwise I will confuse everybody.
Dion, the one question in my mind, are you selling a product, or are you selling an experience now?
I would say experience. The product is probably the outcome, where it's taking them, but it's definitely experience. And it's not just experience for the sake of it. There must be outcome. There must be change. And that's the thing that is exciting me about when I did Sharon's course and when I did the UCT course. I always say, people use the word so cheaply, it was life-changing, but it was really life-changing for me, just to see the outcome of what happened in clients' lives, not because I'm fantastic, just because I was holding up the mirror. And if I can do that and give them here and there the financial insight that they need to get them over the line, that is what I'm trying to do.
I think that's great work, Dion, trying to have that impact in people's lives, because then it becomes life-changing for them, right? And I think merging the two is the life planning, and then being able to help them implement through the use of their finances, that you can see, and you get the fulfillment of seeing them cross that line and go on. So yeah, dude, I think it's not easy, but it's going to be a lack of business once it's built.
Yeah. So I mean, people that know me knows that when was it, 2012, I thought to myself, I'm out of this industry, because I've always hated selling products. It's against my nature. And I actually started studying financial. I started studying a bachelor's in accounting, because we've got an accounting practice. I'm not involved in that in the group, but I was thinking of moving across to there and then just keep my financial busy on the side and let one of my people run it for me. And then I started dreaming of this that we're talking about. And I thought I was on this journey on my own. And then I met Sharon and the old mutual people that totally started. They were speaking my language for the first time ever. If it wasn't for that, then I probably would have seriously considered getting out of this industry, because selling products doesn't change lives.
So thank you very much for that, Dion. Thanks also for everybody's contribution. And I think we've got a few things to ponder on in terms of credentialing, or just even becoming a member of COMENSA. I think there's huge benefit in joining the community. We will definitely continue these sessions next year. So from our side, thank you very much for your contribution and being part of the process. All of the best for this last part of the year, which is normally goes past like a whiz, and then we in Christmas spirit and a family time spirit. I don't know why we can't sometimes have the whole year such a spirit, but for some other reason, it sometimes just takes us into this part of the year and gives us time to reflect, which is also good and a natural stop. So from my side, may you have a blessed time with your families, and also all of the best for your businesses for this last part. And then we see each other in 2023. And Andre, thanks for your contribution also in this forum. Thank you very much. So thanks to everybody joining in, and looking forward to our journey next year and making financial coaching so much more real in for our clients, and helping us as a group clarifying in our own minds. And thanks for Dion bringing the conversation to this morning session also, because I think it had a lot of benefit for a lot of us on the call. So thanks for that. And all of the best from my side.
Thank you very much,
Andre.
Hendrik.
Yeah.
Thanks,
This
everybody.
was a great one.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
Thanks.
year
Bye.
end.